Hey everybody, happy Thursday. It's a little after 8:15ish. I wanted to hop on. I'll give you guys some time to get on here. But I want to talk about sorry, the sun is right in my eye. I want to talk about what we think classes will look like in studios and gyms once we reopen. So we've kind of gotten used to this new normal of quarantine. And it's time now to start thinking about what things will look like later so we can prepare. Especially as a studio owner, I know there's a lot of studio owners in here, some managers, but even if you're just an instructor, not just an instructor, even if you're an instructor, and maybe even if you teach other modalities, this is still going to be very important to you. So few things to consider, and please post in the comments if you have other ideas. Maybe you've talked to your management team about this. I'm very curious to see what people think is going to happen. Now, first and foremost, we're going to have new regulations around the way that we can run these businesses. So gyms are going to change, hopefully not too drastically, but definitely in terms of cleanliness and what is required of us before and after each class, before and after people come into the studio, how many people can come in to the studio or gym. All of these things will be very important. How we teach and what we wear while we teach, whether that requires a mask or some sort of PPE, that maybe even gloves. I mean, who knows? So it's worth considering these things, especially if you're part of management or you're an owner. But even if you're not, it's important to start considering what this is going to look like for you when you teach. So a few things. Obviously, I already mentioned potentially having to wear masks while we teach and while we ride. I personally don't know how that's going to be possible. I can barely breathe with one when I'm walking. But it might be something that we have to work on. I'm imagining the mask industry is going to get very fancy and probably start creating, if they haven't already, some trendy, fancy, cool, fashionable masks, but also maybe masks that we can wear while we're exercising that fit a little bit differently. So we'll see what that looks like. But potentially having to wear masks while we teach, while we ride, our riders might have to. Something that I'm considering right now as an owner, I'm going into the studio and kind of measuring what 6 feet apart will look like, how many bikes will fit. It's tricky, guys. It is very tricky because it's not just 6 feet from, bike to bike within the studio, but it's also 6 feet from the instructor. So it is extremely limiting in terms of how many bikes can actually be in a studio, in a room, in a gym. Your gym, your studio is probably going to be considering that as well. So you may have half, maybe even less, as many bikes in your class as you used to. It's going to be different. It's going to feel smaller. We're just going to have to still work to create that community so that people still feel like it's, just like it was before, because that's what people are going to need when we get back. So I'm imagining, as I mentioned, potentially wearing masks, bikes 6 feet apart. The cleaning process before and after each class is going to be probably more significant. So time between classes might have to distance. Your schedule might have to change. I'm also imagining that virtual classes will continue. So I highly recommend, if you are on a management team, an owner, or maybe you want to help your studio or your gym think ahead, suggest that they start considering how to host virtual classes or live stream classes when they reopen. So right now I'm working on the kind of equipment I'm going to need to be able to live stream my classes while they're happening, looking into the legal aspects of that in terms of our music licensing, looking into platforms that we could use for that, because I will tell you right now, there are going to be plenty of people who used to ride with you who do not want to come back in to a classroom, a studio, a gym, whatever it is. So I'm expecting that virtual and live streaming will continue after this. It's not just going to be over once we get out of quarantine. So considering not only how that works from the studio perspective or the gym perspective, but also as an instructor, you might have to teach to live stream classes, in which case you might be teaching to a room of people at the same time teaching to a video. And that's going to have to change the way that we teach, the way that we cue, getting a little bit more specific in those senses, and also making sure we demonstrate on the bike what people should be doing because they don't have a room around them to look at. So all of these things are really going to change how we as instructors teach to our classes, how our profession works, honestly, how the fitness industry is going to change. I'm bullish. I believe that people, after all this, wellness is going to be even more front of mind. Staying healthy, staying fit is going to be very important to people, but the way that they do that will change. So I do think that we have to consider now that things will not be like they were when we started this. Change sucks sometimes, but it also can be really cool. It can create new opportunity. It can bring in new people. So it can be a really great thing. We just have to start thinking ahead of time what that's going to look like and how we can make it work for us and how you can get excited about it. Because when things go back and they ease into this, it's going to look different. It's going to be hard. It's going to be a transition, and we just have to be prepared for whatever's coming, in which case, hey, Josette, I would love to hear your opinion, actually, talking about what we think things are going to look like. Josette is a studio owner in Canada. We talk a lot about studio owner Baines, and it's been tough lately, so I'd be curious to hear what you think. In your area, I was saying, so I'll review if you just hopped on, PPE, potentially wearing masks while we teach, 6 feet apart at least between the bikes, so limiting capacity, potentially, a lot more, cleaning requirements between classes, potentially changing scheduling, increasing time between classes, that sort of thing. And also live streaming and virtual classes will be more prevalent and almost required for studios to offer people. So that's what I'm thinking. Now it is different, the virtual streaming for cycling, because being in a city, at least, most people I know don't have a bike at home, which is a big impetus to get them into the studio, versus, like a yoga or a bar studio. The live streaming is probably easier for people because they can easily do it at home. They don't need equipment. So that does give us a leg up. People have to come to the studio for the bike purpose. But if they're really not into, being in a social situation for a long time, they might just not come at all. So we have to consider we might lose some people in that sense. So I'm curious to hear from you guys what you think life will look like in the studio, in the gym, once we go back to our new normal. And I want to hear what you think we can do to prepare, how I can help you. I'm doing my own research, plenty of it, and I'll share it with you guys as I learn things. This is all speculative right now, but this is what I think is going to happen. And hopefully we can start to prepare together. We have a lot of powerful minds in this group, a lot of impressive instructors, and you guys are awesome, and you're always involved, and that really, I think, just makes us all better. So if we can band together and figure this out, it's going to be just fine. We just need to work through it one day at a time, right? So let me know in the comments if you have any ideas or if you have any comments on what I just said. I'm curious to hear. Again, this is speculative. I want to know what you guys think, and we'll circle back next week. But I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. As you can see, the sun is shining outside. I'm going to go for a walk and try to start my day off right. All right, guys, have a great week. I'll see you soon.